Music venues are closing across the UK on an unprecedented scale, according to a new report by the parliamentary group responsible for looking at culture.
It was awful, stressful, tiring. I received a notice through the post for quite a big development for demolition and wrapping itself right round the George. And with a late night music licence, I was really well aware that people have rights. You can complain about noise, you can lose your licence very easily, which is what's happening in London now.
The very fact that creative things make areas come up, and that encourages property developers or other people to want to do other things in that area because it's vibrant. And it also perversely encourages people to move into an area because they think that area is cool, but then those rather strange people then think would be cool if they could go to bed at night and not hear any noise from the things that they previously thought were really cool to visit.
There's no doubt that the rate of closures is alarming, really alarming, and that goes for pubs as well as live music venues. We run out of time essentially, so we've set a figure to raise in 2 weeks to try and take the venue off the market, and then for us to be able to find a solution more long term. I'm not sure that there is like a sort of magic wand or a magic pot of money that they can necessarily sort of open and go, there you go, we'll save you.
93% of grassroots music venues across the UK are in privately rented properties, which means that their rentals are subject to market forces. So any city centre is super expensive. And then because the building is valued as being worth a lot, the business rates are super expensive as well.
Nobody could understand a lot of the time. It was like, are you still trying to save the George? I thought we'd already saved it, because I had to go through 2 planning applications for the building at the back. So each time I was successful in those things, it was like everybody thought we'd won. So every time we managed to get to the next stage, it wasn't over until it was over.
I think venues this size are really important because they're testing grounds and they're where new talent can nurture and grow, and which we need in this country. It's one of our great exports is pop music, and just where people can hang out, exchange ideas. The meeting of minds produced a very, very powerful thing, and you need places like that to hang out. That doesn't happen in Starbucks. It's been a part of my life and a part of my career, which I will be thankful for forever. It's this is a primeval rhythm that people want to hear, where they lose themselves and they get high and sexy and escape, and it's something that needs to be here, and it needs to be here in a non-commercial way, outside the high street and firmly in the underground.
The irony is that when we did Venues Day last October, so that was our 6th Venues Day, that was the first time we could report that more venues had opened than closed in the UK. So it really felt like our community and Music Venue Trust work was really paying off.
Crowdfunder was literally the last resort. There was nothing calculated about it. It kept going all the way throughout the summer, really, and we did a show with Fortet, we did a show with Flying Lotus. We hit our target really quickly, and then after that, it was just all about sort of, what next? How do we make good on these promises? We knew that we needed to raise this money, and this money would see us through for however long. The future's looking a lot more secure, and then COVID hit.
When things were getting really serious in Spain and Italy, we knew that at some point we were going to have to lock down. But at the George, one of my bar staff came back from Spain. The night he came back from Spain, he worked in the George, and I was behind the bar with him. 2 days later, he rang up and said that he had COVID-19. So we had to shut the pub before lockdown.
You were scared for months because they stopped everything. And I remember having all these gigs on, and I'd paid out deposits and for gigs, you know, all my outgoings, and then it just all stopped. And I was like, I've got no money now. And then, but no one was told anything about how we're going to get help or when we can go back. So that was actually the worst point. For me personally, it's about keeping showing face, working on things, planning events, planning stuff myself to do when I can, basically.
We've kept really busy. We've been doing loads of projects. 2 days before the venue shut, I think it was March 23rd, we decided that we were going to not drink at the bar anymore. So we basically closed before we'd been made to by the government. That first night, we started drinking on Twitter together. We've done every single night since, apart from Sundays when we're closed.
About 5 days after the lockdown was announced, or even the cancellations, we kind of went full stream into just doing streams here, which we were kind of doing 3 or 4 a day. People coming through, all socially distanced, obviously.
And we just went for it, didn't we? We like out of like just purity and innocence to keep music alive. March to September of this year, we did 140 streams, didn't we? Yeah, 140 streams.
After the venue being saved, it was never a moment in my head that was like, we shut the fuck up now and just go on furlough. You know, people literally saved us from closing a year before. I knew for a fact that what we had to do was just carry on.
It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be really hard. All those years of building up your business, getting it so that you can sleep at night and you know you can pay your tax and your VAT and the accountants and all the bills that endlessly come in. It's to get to that stage. It's tough. When you do get there and you can think, oh, you know, I'm okay now. It's working, this machine. Only for this to happen, and you're down to the bottom again.
You were losing money and there's not much you can do. Like in terms of rent and things on that side, to me as a person having to take out part of my savings to pay rent. It was literally just that, just throwing money away. Taking out a profit, taking out savings, you know.
Yeah, we just need supporting. We just need understanding. We're not. If they can support the banks when they messed up, we didn't mess up. They should support us. Absolutely 100%. And it shouldn't be tough. And we shouldn't have to beg.
Nobody has shown us any evidence that suggests that COVID gets more dangerous the later it gets. However, there's an interesting thing where across Europe, one of the measures that governments are consistently bringing in is some form of curfew. And I think a lot of us who are involved in culture or the nighttime industries just are accepting that it's governments trying to look like they're doing something rather than following any signs to do it. So it's really, really frustrating.
Like that was just a pointless thing that had no scientific basis except that it actually worked the other way because it created a 10 p.m. rush hour on public transport and tubes and, you know, Uber surges and all the rest of it. And, you know, we were losing that on our late license that we have on Friday and Saturday nights. So that was really devastating. We were almost getting by on, you know, with the good weather, you know, people in the garden. You know, it wasn't too bad, but the 10 p.m. thing was a real kick in the nuts and it was totally unnecessary.
Most music venues are scraping by. And for example, the waiting room has a 3 a.m. license. The most money took is between 12 and 3 a.m. on a Friday and Saturday.
London faces losing a number of its small music venues within months without urgent financial support. That's the warning from the charity the Music Venue Trust. It says the Windmill in Brixton and the Lexington in Islington are among those who could be forced to close their doors for good because of the pandemic.
Well, it was the Arts Council Culture Recovery Fund. We had no access to that because the businesses run as a sole trader rather than a limited company, which is a legitimate way to run a business. But that was just a demarcation that the Department of Culture and Arts Council set, so we weren't able to apply for that.
We're doing a concerted thing of talking to MPs and councillors in their areas about the importance of them. But obviously with over 900 venues across the UK, that's a much bigger programme to do it for everyone. The thing with the big package of funding, the CRF, the Cultural Recovery Fund, is that the smallest amount you could apply for was £50,000. And not every grassroots music venue needs £50,000 to make it through till the end of March. So some of them were actually excluded because they didn't need that much, and there was no category in which you could apply for a smaller amount.
The waiting room never got anything, which was very surprising. And unfortunately, you didn't get any information as to why.
They did the first round of it, and then the £250 million left over. And they could have easily went, well, who's fallen through the net?
I know that certain people have missed out. I know that certain people have gripes with certain other people getting money at the rate that they've got it. But I mean, would you desire that job in a million years? Like trying to work out how to save these, this ridiculous multitude of like different creative organisations that you've had no previous knowledge of, and all of a sudden trying to work out who needs what at what time.
MVT, the Music Venue Trust, did the job for them, going, here's 30 venues, like 250 million, and 1.5 million would have saved 30 venues.
Back to your point before a little bit, where you're asking what's the what successes have we taken away, or what support have we gained from the, Arts Council funding or whatever. It's very difficult to answer a question like that if you have no exit plan and no idea of how you're possibly going to get out. The point that we find ourselves in at the minute is we can go, oh yes, well, we're stable, but no one has no one has a clue. Because we're going, well, if we do get to June, we can plan till June. If June's now looking like it could be pushed back to September, that becomes a completely different beast. And then again, so it is a complete sense of limbo.
COVID has amplified some of the challenges that we already had. A lot of the challenges are to do with problems we'd already identified, like the fact that 93% of them are in rented properties. And then what that means is that even when they're shut, they still have to pay that commercial rent. And that's a huge challenge that isn't experienced by other cultural buildings.
It's greedy for money, this building. It's expensive for it to be just empty.
This is the funny thing about COVID. It's not like COVID hit and then before everything was easy for musicians and things were bad before that. The one struggle that I noticed that we were facing, two things: increase in rent across the board is one of the biggest problems, and definitely licensing.
This is about survival right now, like proper survival across the board. It's survival for the venues that were actually all right, the Windmill or the Lexington, venues that have always been okay. I'm sure the Windmill's probably had its moments, but on the whole, like really well run, like really well attended, loved. I'm sure they do all right on the bar. I've never, they've always been all right, I think. And the Lexington's fucking rammed and brilliant, and if they're on the rocks, then who knows what it means for everyone else. So, right now it's about survival for everyone, and then after that, I think you can look at those underlying factors.
our venues and artists are absolutely entwined. You know, people run these venues because of the artists, and then there are a lot of artists that will credit the venues from which they came. So it's very much about that relationship between artists and the venues.
In my early career, they were absolutely vital. In my early career, I wouldn't have got a gig at the Brixton Academy, so I had to play 200 venues the size of this, or smaller. If every person whose career has been helped by one of the socials, whether it's the Albany, Smithfields, Turnmills or here, if we all did one night every 2 months, that would fill the coffers.
I think for the general populace, like the missing of a nightclub or the missing of, you know, a live music venue, that will not get equated, but there's millions of people who live off this and are sustained from that. And I suppose, looking ahead, my hope would be that that's recognised by the general public as well, because that will also, you know, sort of play out within government policy as well. So I think that's probably my biggest hope for it.
I'm always optimistic about creative industries because by their very nature they morph and adapt and do new things. Particularly optimistic about the social. It feels like we've got a little bit of security, but also like a future to look forward to for the next hopefully for the next 20 years.
I am optimistic about the brilliance of the people in our network, because genuinely some of the best people in the world are part of our community and part of the music ecosystem. Where the less optimistic tone comes in is the toll that this is taking on people. They're not only struggling themselves, but you know, they feel responsible for the staff, the team, the artists, the audiences. So it's really, really tough for some people, and it is possible that we may lose some venues because people just go, do you know what, I can't fight any longer.